Hello, and welcome. Silrace here with Star Citizen, and this is a quick impression video on the P-52 Merlin ship. This is a scout ship which is supposed to be transported inside another ship. Originally I believe it was made for the Constellation, but it's basically available for everybody to buy it right now. If you want to buy a small packaged scout ship, which is quite agile and whatnot, and I have to say I really like this cockpit design. Firstly, the cockpit is pretty open, as you can tell. Like, this is very open cockpit. This is very fantastically open cockpit. I love it. The front of the cockpit though is, well, there is obviously this blue paneling right here, which obstructs your view a little bit, but not too much. You can easily see through it still. And this bar here does not really take up a lot of real estate on the screen, so it doesn't really stop you from seeing places. And this screen here, this is simple, elegant, and tells you exactly everything you need to know, which is just how it should be. There should be no extra bells and whistles, there should be no unnecessary stuff. So this is very nice. It lists your weapons and all the usual useful little pieces of stuff. And inside even it looks pretty sleek. There is no cables hanging out, there is none of that stuff. This is pretty nice from the aesthetics point of view, just from inside the cockpit alone. The default carries a couple laser guns and a Gatling, and I do not actually own this scout ship. For the reason I have access to it is because it's a placeholder waiting for another scout ship, which is supposed to be carried around with a ship I actually own, a bigger ship. So let's fly around with it a little bit. As you can see here, it actually tells you how fast this thing goes, and it is actually pretty fast. It's an agile fighter with very good maneuvering, very good turning speeds, and very good handling. I am absolutely blown away. I'm liking this, and if the thing I will eventually get, which replaces this one, isn't as good, I might end up buying this just because this makes me feel like I am again flying around with my Interceptor, and this would be another ship in the same vein, and I am actually really enjoying that. Obviously this is a little slower than the Interceptor, but it can still beat some racing ships, like definitely. Because it is a scout ship. It is supposed to be able to get from place to place and do a little bit of combat while it is at that as well. As you can tell, does have a little bit of guns. It doesn't obviously, because it is a smaller ship. It is rather tiny comparing to some other things. It obviously cannot take as much punishment. That's just the nature of the game. And another bit of an issue, not big of an issue, maybe a big one too, is that the weaponry, if I stop moving here and show you, all the weaponry is fixed. It will always fire at the single point. So to actually do combat with this, you have to fly really well. You do not have turreted weaponry in this ship. Something to keep in mind if you want to actually purchase this ship for combat purposes. You will have to fly really well, because everything is fixed. Right. Let's look at this thing from the outside, shall we? And then I will conclude this video. So, as I said, this ship is tiny. It is small. As you can tell, it is very small. But it is very sleek looking. It's almost like looking at the Interceptor, except the Interceptor is basically a cockpit strapped on two engines. This thing looks a little bit wider, because the wings go wider than they do on essentially the Interceptor. However, this is still small and sleek looking ship, and if I change the camera angle to the front, yeah, it's basically in a sense similar to the Interceptor, twin engines, or rather in this case a single engine with two exhausts and a cockpit with a wing for a couple guns and a nose-mounted Gatling gun, which you can see spin here, and I love that. I just love that. That looks so freaking good. That looks absolutely stellar that they animated that Gatling gun spinning. Actually, that is fantastic. And then you get a see a close-up of the cockpit with the, well, reflective helmet and everything. I think that's it. That's here me done with this thing. And frankly, I wouldn't suggest buying this for combat purposes, simply because of the completely fixed stuff. If you wanna buy a ship for combat purposes, buy a ship for combat purposes. But this might be a good way to get easy access to the game for kind of cheap if you are into that kind of stuff and don't really want to buy one of the Mustangs or an Aurora. Anyway, just my opinion of the ship. It is sleek looking, I quite like it, and if the one I get eventually, and I will make a video of, is not on par with this one, I will probably buy this just because this is so much like my Interceptor. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully this was helpful on your decision to actually purchase this thing or not. And as mentioned, I do not own this, so I obviously cannot show it in the hangar itself.